to our hotel room. Welcome to
Positively Literary,
a show about books and authors and all things writing. Book talk, and book conferences, writing conferences. We are coming to you live, not live, but from When Words Collide 2025. We are at the hotel room.
We have a booth.
And we did good on sales today.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
We're happy. Thank you, community of Calgary.
Thank you to everyone who came and bought books and talked to us and are watching this, who we just had dinner with downstairs. Today's topic is faith-based books.
And it's a good one.
Yep. And our author is author K.F. Therese. And she has an interesting story, actually. And she'll probably tell us more about it when I ask the questions or we tell you the questions.
And what are we drinking?
Stephanie is drinking a water bottle. And I am drinking a water bottle with a straw.
Wow. You had to up me. You just had to up me.
I've got some very interesting books. Like, I'm going to talk about this in a minute, but
I got a book too.
What is it? I was reading it. It's in my bed. One moment. Amish. Okay, I got Amish books, guys. I'm going to get into this soon. This is her pretend Amish boyfriend. And
is that what it's called?
Yes, look at that. The Innkeeper's Bride. So
her pretend Amish boyfriend. Oh my gosh.
So I'll tell you what happened.
Hilarious.
I went to the library to look for Love Inspired and Hallmark and all this stuff, and I couldn't find any. And then I talked to the librarian. He's like, "Oh, we have a little section of faith-based books." But the funny thing was, it was all Amish romances, and I'd never in my life seen or known that it's a thing. I didn't know that there was such a thing as Amish romances, but it's very popular and it's got like a whole thing. So I definitely. But should we talk about our guest first?
Yeah, let's dive right into that. So we asked our guests some very important questions.
Yes, and just to briefly say, so the way I discovered her is she was putting these Instagram posts talking about how she will no longer be writing her spicy romance books. That was her genre. We actually talked a little bit, and she was worried about, she has a following, about how the reaction from her readers and her, those who follow her. And I was interested. So that brought up this whole topic of faith-based. She had kind of like this conversion of heart kind of thing. So she felt convicted and she was going to change her whole genre because of this. So this is very fascinating to me. And I'm interested to see what she has to say as far as changing, even if it's not faith-based, but changing your genre like that. Okay, so we have two questions. We also just had like a 5-hour dinner with these lovely writers.
I didn't mean to, so if I'm yawning,
Okay, so here are her questions. Okay, question 1. Please share your story about your transition from writing spicy romance to clean romance and how your conversion to faith impacted this new conviction in your writing. And question 2. What do you believe are the expectations of clean romance readers? And how closely do you intend to follow those norms in your writing now that you've switched to writing clean romance? So here is author K.F. Therese.
Hi there, my name is K.F. Therese, or K.F. Therese. I am a indie Catholic romance author from here in the beautiful rural Alberta. I feel so blessed to be able to be a part of this. So the first question you asked was to share my story about my transition from writing spicy romance to writing clean romance and how my faith impacted that switch. So I was in the process of doing my final editing of my book, The Widow Sterling. And as I was going through doing a proofread and looking at everything, I came across 2 very distinct scenes where both my male character and my female character basically get down on their knees and pray for reasons I won't say, just so I don't spoil the book. I don't remember writing those scenes. And whenever I tell people, they kind of scoff at whatever. But I genuinely do not remember writing those scenes. And I kept reading over them, and I realized that this was kind of like the bang over the head of it's time to come home. Because leading up to that point, I had been in this really tumultuous place of, do I want to go back to Christianity? Should I stay in my New Age witchcraft practice? I was feeling so unfulfilled and so empty, and like none of the help I needed, none of the guidance I required, none of the fulfillment that is supposed to come from spirituality and faith was there for me. It was hollow, and it felt performative. I was speaking with some friends around me who were actually reconnecting with their Christian faith. A dear friend of mine, her name is Dolly. She was actually saying how she was kind of getting curious about trying out different churches. She grew up in a very toxic faith environment, and she wanted to reconnect with her faith in her way. And I told her, as much as I was practicing, New Age and witchcraft and all this stuff, I told her, like, I never had a bad experience in the Catholic Church. And whenever people would kind of start talking poorly about the Catholic Church, my back would go up. Like, hey, I'm not Catholic, but, and that would always be my excuse, because I grew up in the Catholic Church and I left it as a teenager, being an edgy teenager. And so fast forward to this time in my life where I'm hearing my friends around me talking about reconnecting with Christianity, and even me encouraging my friend to check out a Catholic church. And, it's funny now, that was kind of like, in hindsight, I look at that as almost like my first act of evangelism because she is now a practicing Catholic. Every Christmas, my mom would ask me, let's go to midnight mass. And I'd be like, I don't want to go. I'm not a Catholic. And it was me this time. I was like, Mom, do you want to go to midnight mass? And she was like, yeah, I do. So I didn't realize that the Catholic Church in my area, which had been bouncing between like running out of a community center and then the local high school gym because the original church building was condemned, and it had been for 16 years, had finally fundraised the money that year to build their new church. And it was their very first Christmas in that church. And so we go to midnight mass, and it is breathtaking, beautiful. And my mom and I are both in tears. And a big part of this, and I think like the biggest reason that I've come back to my faith, is because I lost my father. My dad was very spiritual. He wasn't explicitly, one church or the other. He was baptized within the Church of England because he was born in England. He found his faith on his sobriety journey. And my dad had always been very spiritual. My mom was always Catholic. And I really felt my dad's presence with us at midnight mass. So it kind of like started a chain event of me, all these little things, and then editing that book really was kind of like, wake up, it's time for you to come back. And the morning of Epiphany, I went and got this tattoo. And if you can't read backwards, it says, "Look to the Stars." It's from one of my favorite movies from childhood, Dragonheart. And if you don't know what Epiphany is focusing on, it focuses on the story of the 3 wise men who follow a star. 3 pagans, astronomers, who followed a star they had never seen before and found the Messiah. So I get this tattoo, and I'm humming and hawing about going because my mom bails on me. And then I just say, screw it, and I go. And I go by myself, and I end up sitting in the front stinking pew. I am front and center, right in front of the altar, right in front of the little pontiff. No, that's not the right word, but where they talk. And I'm sitting in mass, and my wonderful deacon gives this beautiful homily about these 3 pagans. And I'm just ugly crying, thinking about my book, Widow Sterling, and how Beatrice, the main female character, expresses in the book before she prays, because, she looks over and she sees this cross and rosary hanging on the wall that she got from her first mother-in-law. She said, I was never a religious woman, but she felt convicted to pray in that moment in the book. And I just thought, I was never overtly religious growing up. My mom really tried, and I never did. But in this moment here at Epiphany Mass, I was like, I need to be here. That kind of kicked this whole thing off. I immediately joined the RCIA program after sobbing in front of my deacon, doing a lot of what I jokingly refer to as Catholic therapy, where I'm sitting in my priest's office, vomiting out all of my troubles, my woes, my feelings of I'm unworthy. Father Cristino and Deacon Paul really guided me through getting my sacraments. I was baptized Catholic, but I never got my sacraments. And so this past Easter, I was confirmed in the Roman Catholic Church and I received my first Holy Communion. And this September, my husband and I are actually sacramentalizing and bringing Christ into our marriage. We're having it for our second wedding anniversary. From the moment that I was confirmed this past Easter, I knew something had to change because something inside me felt really wrong. And I know that I had an issue with adult material. I found myself, when I was reading, totally uninterested in a book if there was no spice. I found myself, when I was writing, going, oh, well, I've written all this stuff, like, can I put a spicy scene in yet? And for me, that didn't feel right. It was almost, it is an addiction. It can be, and it was for me. And it is for me, and it's something that I know I'm going to have to deal with for probably the rest of my adult life. Because that's the thing about sin, is it really, really comes and rears its ugly head right when you don't think it will. So after talking with my priest a whole lot about it, he questioned if continuing being an author was a good decision for me. And I said, Father Cristino, I have to keep writing. I love writing. He said, okay, well, do you think that being an author who writes that kind of content is the right decision for you? And at first I was like, oh, it's fine. It doesn't matter. But then I kept thinking about it, and it does matter. It really matters. I love to write stories about love. And I've been told that I write a good plot. I knew that I was capable of writing a really good story without it. Because when I looked at, in particular, The Widow Sterling, I knew that that book would stand up on its own legs with or without the spice. And that's why it's actually going to be edited and republished in the coming year as a second edition with, I'm hopefully going to add some bonus content. If I could look at one of my books and literally just go into the document and literally like no editing to make it like flow better, just chop out the spicy scenes, and I knew it still stood up, I knew that I could let the spice go. And that doesn't mean that I'm not writing romance anymore. Of course I'm going to write romance. I love writing about love. But for me, it doesn't necessarily need to be on the page. Because at the end of the day, we're all grown. Well, those of us that are reading adult romance books are grown, hopefully. We know what happens. We know what adults do when they're in love. And so I didn't need to explicitly put it on the page for everyone to see. So I started thinking about it and I said, well, am I just going to do squeaky clean? Well, no, because I do really like writing those tender moments of embracing and the, tender whispers that come, after the deed. And so I realized that I could very easily switch to just writing closed door and be content with that. Because frankly, the tenderness that comes before and then the care that comes after is so important. When we talk about intimacy, we're not just talking about the deed. We're talking about a mindset, an emotion, a connection. And now, especially after done all this work with my priest and him, even challenging my husband and I on looking a little bit deeper into what it means to be married, what it means to be intimate, versus what we originally thought it was. I now I feel a much more whole and round understanding of even what that should look like. I now want to be a better wife. It's only going to improve my writing. I think a friend of mine really wrapped it up so nicely today. He said, it's amazing how our faith encompasses all of our lives when we allow it to. I feel that my faith coming into play and allowing it so much room to breathe and flourish and grow in my writing is absolutely fundamental to who I am as a person now. So yeah, I'm not going to be a squeaky clean romance author, because at the end of the day, I feel like people who think like squeaky clean means like no kissing, no cussing, no, tender embraces, those kinds of things are just like, there's just like nice words. And again, like that could be like an extreme end. But for me, there is definitely going to be tension in my stories. There's going to be heat, but there's not going to be spice, in the sense of there's going to be passion, and there's going to be passionate moments of closeness, of tenderness, but it's just going to kind of be like a fade to black moment. And obviously I'm particularly kind of hoping for Christian readers, because not only am I going into the closed door sides of romance, but I'm also very explicitly going into the Christian sides of romance, very specifically Roman Catholicism, simply because that is my past, present, and future. I've heard from other readers where they say, well, if you're going to be a Christian author and a clean romance author, it has to be redeemable in some way. So if there are flawed characters, there has to be some kind of redemption and salvation aspect, which I completely agree with. But it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm probably going to tick every single perfect box for Christian readers. I know some Christian readers are very offended by cussing in their books. And frankly, I write historical Westerns and I write some rough and tumble cowboys. So there's going to be cussing in my books. These are rough and tumble cowboys that have sordid pasts, and they have a lot of trauma in some cases. I always am writing that redemption, that second chance at life. That's kind of a big thing that I care about. Even in my book, Widow Sterling, Rufus is a recovering addict, and another secondary character, Luke, is also a recovering alcoholic. In my release that's coming September 12th, Miss Tilly Ray, Boone is a horrible womanizer when he first meets Matilda. Even though he's had all of this terrible past with women, he works hard to fix himself. I feel like the expectations are all over the place when it comes to clean romance readers or Christian romance readers. I don't know if I'll be able to meet anyone or everyone's needs, but I'm going to do it my way, in a way that I feel is honoring my own journey of faith and my own struggle with sin, still honoring the fact that this is a romance story. Hopefully that answers all your questions. I really appreciate this opportunity. So thank you both.
Thank you for telling us all about your journey.
That was amazing and inspiring, and
you know what? It's brave.
it is.
It's brave. I think it's brave. And I kind of feel that way too, because once in a while I'll post something, like I've been watching The Chosen, and I really wanted to post like this edit about The Chosen, and I'm really enjoying it. But you always wonder well, what are my readers? I'm not a faith-based writer. I think that if you have a certain level of faith, or your faith, it always gets into your writing.
There's seeds. You're planting seeds.
Yeah, and it's not even like you're talking about faith topics, but your character acts and reacts and has a certain worldview and stuff. It's just there, right?
I agree.
And I think that it is probably in my writing more so than I know. But before I talk about this, I have a little most likely to for us.
Ooh, I'm excited for this.
Okay, ready?
Ready.
Most likely to walk into the wrong hotel room if the door is open.
Yes, that's totally good.
Most likely to order room service. I'm curious to know why you picked me, but it's because I'm like, money? What? Just order it. Most likely to speak at a conference. This is amazing that we... Okay. Most likely to fall asleep during a keynote speech. Okay. Most likely to turn a conversation into a sermon. Just you wait till I start talking about the Amish romance. Okay. Most likely to need prayers. I've been praying for you.
I do. I message her. I'm like, please pray for me.
It's like ding, 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 ding. I'm like, I'm praying. Most likely to order a movie on the hotel TV. Most likely to convince the other person to do something mischievous. Okay, that was easy. Most likely to forget their toothbrush.
Okay, but my smile's still nice, right?
They used to have these games where like it's like how well do you know the other person? Like we'd be so good at that.
I think so too.
I'm so good at that. Okay, are you guys ready? So I didn't even know Amish romances existed. So I'm gonna paint you a picture.
Okay.
So there's the picture. It's painted already. There you go. The end. She's, I would say, like this perfect, young, innocent. So her concerns are like, oh, I talk too much. I feel like that's a sin. And, you know, everything is very innocent. And I think I felt like, because now that I'm older, I felt like it was kind of dangerous to read a book like this.
Why?
It felt a little bit scary to me because I went through that whole stage of life where I wanted to be a good person, and it doesn't leave room for the salvation story of like you can never be good enough, and that's why Jesus died on the cross, so that because we can't reach that perfection. So there's grace, and then there's like a grace every day. I don't know.
I think we were kind of talking a little bit about this thing because I was showing her these like soap opera things that I have on my phone that I read, and we're talking about or I watch, and we're talking about the writing behind it. But we're saying like something similar, how it's kind of dangerous, how like a lot of faith in movies or in books can be really
misrepresented.
Okay,
so that's a bit different because that is like, for example, I think in one of the things, the pastor, the priest, or somebody was like a bad
it was the pastor's daughter. It was like the soap opera where the pastor's daughter gets with the bad boy and she's getting beaten by her father.
I wish I had the words to say why I'm a little concerned about
the representation.
Yeah.
I have a book.
You have a book that was faith-based, and you wanted to mention it because you did a review, like an actual review.
I did an actual review. I read it all. It was called Soul Deep.
Rose Morgan.
Yeah, Rose Morgan wrote Soul Deep.
It was a religious fiction.
It was a religious fiction. I read the whole thing. It was pretty good. Without giving too much away, it's basically looking into life after death. So
that's intense faith-based.
Yeah,
I try not to think about.
But the way it was presented wasn't sensitive. Like, I don't know how to explain it. It wasn't like...
You mean it wasn't emotional? It was more...
Yeah, it wasn't. Like, I mean, there's some emotion to it, but it wasn't like shocking where, you know, this religion family loses a child or something like that. It's basically like the main protagonist dies, and it's what their life is while they're dead. It's well done. It is.
How did you feel after? Did it make you feel hopeful or a little?
Actually, yeah. Okay. I didn't feel, after reading it, I was like, I didn't feel as scared of the idea of death.
Oh, I was like that.
I was feeling like, you know what? This isn't the end, you know? The protagonist wasn't particularly religious while she was...
Oh, interesting.
While she was
alive, and then...
Yeah, it was really, I think it was well done. Soul Deep, that's what it's called.
So in the 90s, this whole series was so popular, I wasn't able to get book one. I remember reading book one and reading book two and just really being invested. And it says over 65 million sold.
Wow.
That's when they used to put that in the corner.
Kingdom, what is it?
This is probably like the last. It's called the Left Behind series.
Oh,
so Left Behind, and you were saying how she was imagining what would be in heaven. This is also an imagining of, like, it's the book of Revelation. They're left behind because people get raptured. So there's this like talk in the Bible about that. And of course, it's still different religions and faiths have different ideas of what the book of Revelation means by that. The Left Behind series is a collection of 16 Christian apocalyptic novels that explores the end times narrative inspired by the book of Revelation. So it was very interesting.
Is it gloom and doom, though?
No, because so the people that were left behind because they were not Christian or they didn't get taken up, some of them come to faith. I think I'm trying to remember.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think when it comes to theological interpretations, like I don't think that's the most important thing for faith or even faith-based novels. Overall, it would have been a Protestant writer. I don't know his exact denomination, but not a Catholic writer. That much I know.
I can think of actually another faith-based book.
Okay.
So they could travel back in time with these sneakers, these kids, but they end up in like scriptural times.
Oh, that's fun. Is it kind of mid-grade or younger?
I would say mid-grade.
Okay. I could see that. Like you could read it at school too. When you're reading time.
Well, I don't think they would read it at school because it's faith-based and it's going back into like scriptures and they're living during that time and they're freaked out and they like fall in love with like one of these scriptural hero guys. I don't know.
I was thinking that in schools, again, I think there was this, especially in Alberta, about they wanted to take certain books out of the schools.
Yeah.
There's two ends of that spectrum. Like you're saying, maybe they wouldn't read it because it's faith-based. And what's happening now is kind of the other end of the spectrum where they're like, oh, this goes against, I don't know what it goes against. Like they've been removing some books. Saving Sailor. Sailor is the dog. This is one of the first faith-based books I read. I don't think I even knew that it was. I can't remember. It inspired me to write. And I wrote so my novels aren't faith-based, but of course, like I was saying, you are who you are and it comes out in your novels. But this is my first ever book. Look at this. This is the first book I ever published. So when I say published, I mean I went to Staples and I asked them about this. And then I printed out these pages. Look at this.
Oh my gosh.
There's only one copy.
Let's see. What is this called?
It's called Hamster Heaven.
Oh, it's just a little hamster in the corner. Look at it. It's so cute.
This was before formatting software. This was all done on Word.
Look at that's pretty darn good.
It was all done on Word.
As a kid.
This has not been published yet. One day. You know what happens in here? And this feeds into the Amish romance. She gets invited to a party. Like she's pretty introverted, but they spike her drink. Sorry, it's a bit of a spoiler, but they spike her drink.
So can't spoil your.
No, but this is important. Okay.
Fine.
And she becomes like.
Where does the hamster fit in?
I'll tell you.
Okay,
so
sorry.
They spike her drink and she acts poorly. Like there's a photo of her sitting on some guy's lap or whatever. It's nothing crazy, but she's horrified at the fact that she's done these. Basically, she doesn't want to talk to the Jewish boy anymore because now she's bad. Okay. So this is middle grade. So now, and she doesn't want to pray anymore. Basically, she just feels that she is bad and will not go to heaven. Okay. So hamster. So she will not go to heaven. And because, so what she decides to do is, I'm bad anyway, so I'll just hang out with the bad kids. Like she is not happy and she sees that they're not happy, but she's just like, this is my life now. And she neglects her hamster. That's how we start. She loves this hamster. So if I tell you why this is called Hamster Heaven, it will be the biggest spoiler of all time. I'll wait for everyone to fast forward. Her hamster dies. And this is where she's
not Mr. Fluffyton.
This is where...
What was her hamster's name?
Everything changed. Charlie?
Charlie!
We were just having dinner with Charles James and all the other authors, and we call him Charlie. Charlie dies, and that's the moment of, like when you have a existential crisis. We're tired. Existential? Existential?
Intentional?
Existential crisis. So she ends up in a confessional, and that's when there's like this moment of, that's when she really finds out about salvation, which is like, okay, we are all bad. I'm worried for the girls, that the standards that they're being held at, and then the guys that are being represented, it's like, I'm a little worried that they're going to get into some scary situations or get into marriage with some wrong mindsets. Ooh. Or they're going to be expecting some very perfect things. Does that sound cynical of me? I guess maybe all romance is like that. And so you have to know that it's a fantasy. Thank you for joining us.
This has been Positively Literary.
That's our cue. Bye, everybody.